Running shoes are typically designed for one type of run, and when a brand tries to make a shoe that can do a little bit of everything, it ends up being mediocre at best at most things, but not really great in most areas. With this shoe, Speedland's attempting to challenge that perception, but does the shoe live up to their expectations? Today, we break down the Speedland RX Fair Play. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Today, like I said, we're reviewing the Speedland RX Fair Play, which is Speedland's very first road shoe. If you're not familiar with Speedland, they're essentially a boutique trail running brand, really kind of shining more so in the ultra running space, and they make a wide variety of models, but something really unique about them is that they only really do one run of each shoe or colorway. So if you don't order in the original batch, you don't get the shoe because they never restock. Now, if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of this review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full video when you get a second, as I put a lot of time and effort into these. And if you've been a passive watcher for a while and you're not yet subscribed, I would sure appreciate it if you make the jump, hit that subscribe button, even turn on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But in 2025, we've been hitting daily weekday videos and we haven't missed a weekday yet. Now, before I get into any details on the shoe, let's go over some quick disclaimers, which are that Speedland did provide these shoes to me free of charge for the purpose of review. That being said, I'm not being paid for this video. I'm not asked to include the shoe in any specific content. They don't get to watch the video beforehand. I'm not giving a script, talk tracks, anything like that. All thoughts are entirely my own. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of the shoe. Now what's really cool with this shoe is that Speedland actually sent me a handwritten note with it. And in it they said, "Eric, we hope you enjoy our first road shoe. Try it with and without the plate. We think fast tempo days are good with the plate, easy recovery days without. But interested to hear what you think. Best, Kevin and Dave." So you can see right there, they said themselves that this shoe is designed to do a little bit of everything. You can put a carbon fiber plate in the shoe, and we'll talk more about this within the midsole section of the review, or you can leave it without and run easy. So the shoe is designed to do a little bit of everything. As such, that's how we're going to evaluate the shoe. Now from a price perspective, this shoe comes in at a whopping $300, which yes, is expensive and would typically categorize it or push you into that kind of either premium long run space or in that racing space. Now, what I think is going to get lost in the price tag for those that are unfamiliar with Speedland is that Speedland shoes tend to be very, very durable, many of them lasting for 600 to even 1,000 miles per pair. So if that is indeed the case, then the shoe would justify the extra cost because essentially you're getting the lifespan of two shoes in one. The other thing to consider is if you bought a daily trainer as well as a tempo day shoe, you would be paying probably closer to $350 to $400 depending on the brand you're going with. So again, if this shoe does indeed go easy and tempo and do it well, then really it justifies the cost. Now from a specs perspective, the shoe comes in at 8.5 ounces and 241 grams without the plate, but if you put the plate in, it comes in at 9.2 ounces and 260 grams. Meanwhile, from a stack standpoint, you have 40 millimeters in the heel, 33 in the forefoot, and a 7 millimeter overall heel to toe drop. Now, talking about the fit of this shoe, I would say that this shoe fits on the wide end of standard or potentially even true wide. Either way, it is very much wide foot friendly. I do find that it fits true to size lengthwise, so I would go with your normal size. But if you are someone with narrow feet, I am skeptical that this shoe is going to work for you. While you can dial down the BOA and get really, really good lockdown in the midfoot, I found that the heel is very, very wide, the toe box is very, very wide, and the midfoot, again, is on the wider end of standard. Now, moving to the upper, Speedland uses what is called a spacer mesh for that kind of booty, almost sock-like upper, and then you can see that they obviously have that BOA lacing system, which allows you to just kind of click and then twist in order to tighten the shoe. Now the upper itself is very, very comfortable. It is very accommodating, and you can get really, really good lockdown in the midfoot area of the shoe because of the BOA lacing. I will say though that I struggled a little bit to find the dialed fit because my heel did slide up quite a bit when running in the shoe, and so when I tried to dial in the BOA in order to reduce the heel slippage, I ended up over tightening and causing some discomfort in the midfoot and forefoot. Now I don't have a narrow foot, but I definitely don't have a wide foot either. I really am kind of an average foot size and shape, and because of that, like I said, if you're narrow footed, I don't think that this upper is going to work for you. In fact, I think that this is going to work best for wide foot people. Despite having a few issues with the lockdown in the upper, I still was able to get locked down, and even with the heel slippage, I didn't feel like I was sliding around in the shoe in that forefoot or midfoot section. regardless of the paces that I was running. On top of that, I do find that the spacer mesh is very, very breathable and very, very comfortable overall. And then there's some really nice cushion there in the heel counter. It is a structured heel, but you can see that there is a little bit of flex as well there. So it's not going to be overly rigid or anything on your foot. I do wonder if Speedland had used kind of a dual BOA setup, one for the forefoot, one for kind of that midfoot or heel area, or even done something similar to the UA Infinite Mega, where you had this BOA right here that was dedicated specifically to that heel counter right there. I do think that that might have been a little bit better in terms of getting that lockdown with the upper, but I would guess that they didn't do that because they wanted to reduce the weight of the shoe. So something else to consider, they have a couple of trail models that do a BOA and then they have a strap as well, and that might save a little bit of weight, but obviously when you're on the road and you're trying to design something that can also go fast, you're looking for areas to cut down on that weight, and these BOA lacing systems are not the lightest things out there. Now moving to the midsole, the midsole is very, very unique and really, really cool overall. So earlier on I showed you this carbon fiber plate, and you can see that it's got a little notch there in the back because this is actually removable or insertable into the shoe. The shoe is comprised of two different types of foams. In the midsole, you have actually a drop-in midsole, and this isn't the only shoe that we've seen do this. In fact, all Speedland shoes have drop-in midsoles, but we've also seen things like this from other brands such as On. Now, the internal midsole or drop-in midsole is a supercritical ATPU blend. You can see it's got a little bit of that beaded texture, and then you have some really, really cool details there on the midsole as well. But then when you flip it over and you look at the bottom, you can see that little notch there, and that is actually where you put the carbon fiber plate in the shoe. To do that, all you do is you just kind of put this notch right here on the midsole, that little nub right there. You twist it, you just make sure you hold it in place, and then you insert it back into the shoe. So really this shoe is a little bit of like a modular type of shoe. So if you want to go easy, just kind of steady, or you don't want a plate in the shoe that day for whatever reason, you can go ahead and go without the plate. But then if you're doing intervals, something a little bit faster, maybe some race paces, you can go ahead, put that plate in, and then you're going to get a little bit more pop, a little bit more rigidity in that midsole, which is going to help propel you forward. Now, the second thing about this midsole that is really, really unique and cool is that this carrier shell or other foam is a supercritical ATPU that is uncompressed. So essentially what they do is they have these large sheets of foam that haven't been pressed into any shape, and then they go ahead, they may laser cut them into a specific shape, and then they actually use a buff and they grind it down into the shape that you see here. This is very unique because most foams are actually either compressed or expanded into molds, and the only other shoe that I can think of with an uncompressed foam is actually the Adidas Adios Adizero Pro Evo 1, which was the $500 single marathon optimized race shoe from Adidas. Now, having raced in that shoe, this type of foam is really, really responsive. I'm not sure if having it being uncompressed makes it just a little bit lighter or just a little bit more responsive. Again, I'm not 100% sure, but this ATPU foam, the supercritical ATPU foam, is a lot of fun. And I found that I actually really prefer the shoe without the plate. I find it to be soft, yet stable and supportive and very, very responsive. And so even on my easy days, I felt like I could maintain a slightly faster pace than normal because I was getting some good feedback. And without the plate, the shoe is only 8.5 ounces, which is not a heavy shoe by any means. I mean, it's not full lightweight, but as far as daily trainers go, it's on the lighter side. So the shoe is actually, despite looking a little bit blocky, is pretty nimble. It's soft, it's stable, it's responsive. So it feels really, really nice on those daily runs. And I even ran more tempo paces without the plate in the shoe as well and felt really, really comfortable. That being said, I did some threshold intervals earlier this week and I did put the plate in, and you do get a little bit of that classic pop there. And so I don't think the shoe necessarily needs the plate. I think it's a very versatile shoe without the plate. But if you do want a little bit more of that snap, or even if you want something a little bit less aggressive, they also have these Carbitex plates that are not quite as rigid. They're a little bit more trail oriented with a little bit more flex. You could also put these in and have kind of more of like a nylon super trainer plated feel within the shoe. So the shoe has some modular options, which make it very, very versatile, very, very fun. Pace versatility is great in the shoe. It feels comfortable at easy. It feels comfortable at marathon pace, threshold pace. Even short interval paces are good in the shoe. I will say in that space though, once you're starting to get more in like the short, fast intervals, then you might want something with a little bit more ground feel, a little bit more snap, a little bit more nimble, but you do have the option of using that with this shoe. Now, given the price point, I think we do have to ask, is this a race shoe or or is this a marathon racing option? And in that sense, I don't think it is, for me at least. I think it's a really versatile daily trainer. I think it's a great workout shoe. I love that I can use it for almost anything. I love it on the long run. It feels very comfortable on long runs, but it's not the type of shoe that I think I would pick for a fast marathon. That being said, if I was doing like a road 50K or 50 miler where I was going to have to slow down my pace a little bit, I do think that this is a viable option. Now, moving to the outsole, you have what is called a web scratch rubber, and there is a very, very minor traction pattern there if you kind of zoom in, but on first glance, it kind of looks almost smooth, and you do have that full coverage. So I was actually a little bit skeptical of how this was going to handle some wet roads or some frosty roads. It's still been pretty cold here in Utah, and so the roads can be a little bit iffy at times, and if the grip's not locked in, I'm slipping around. That was not an issue with this shoe. I would say that it's not just passable grip, but it's actually really, really good grip on the outsole of this shoe. And so Speedland, I think they did an excellent job with that construction overall. And you can tell that these are just premium materials throughout the shoe itself. Now, as far as who's this shoe for, you know, I've been talking to some of my other reviewer friends, especially some people that are putting miles on the shoe, and we're trying to figure out where does this fit best, because I do think the price tag will automatically disqualify a lot of people. Not that the price tag is not necessarily justified, so much that I just think a lot of people aren't going to consider it at that price point unless it is a marathon race shoe, just because that's kind of how we've been conditioned. At $300, you have to get some pretty serious performance, and you have to get some pretty serious benefit from the shoe in order to justify that. And so I do think if you are a value-based runner, someone who is looking for a shoe that is going to last a really long time, I do expect to be able to get, you know, 500, 600, 700 miles out of this shoe and have it feel really, really good. The other people I think that would really like the shoe are those who are running road ultras. And I know that's a very, very niche, like small group of people, but I think that this shoe would do really, really well in that element. And I think that that's probably where it's going to work best. The wide fit, the ability to adjust it with the BOA lacing, it's just going to give you those extra features that you may need when you're going in and out of aid stations and pit stops and things like that. Just to be able to adjust on the fly, if you need to do any first aid, taping, anything like that is going to be really, really key to reduce some of that time. And again, I think that that space, as well as that soft yet stable midsole, is really going to help carry you through some of those longer, grindier miles. I think people who just want one shoe that can do everything, that they can race in, that they can do speed work in, that they can do easy in, and is actually going to perform well in pretty much every category. I'm not going to say it's going to be the best shoe in every category. I might say, though, it might be outperforming or right there up top with most of the top daily trainers. So as a daily trainer, I think it's phenomenal, but that alone at $300 won't justify it. So if you're looking for that, you are someone who, you know, you're going to really enjoy it for the daily training miles, and you don't really want to commit to a fully shoe rotation. You don't want to buy multiple shoes. Maybe it's inconvenient to travel with it, whatever it may be. Having a shoe that can do a little bit of everything, that overall versatility, and do it well, like I said, it can be a game changer for some if they're looking for that. So just some final thoughts on the shoe. Honestly, I really, really like it. It is one of my favorite daily training foams, and while, yeah, I do think that there are better shoes for actual workouts, speed workouts, long run workouts, things along those lines, I really, really enjoyed the shoe on long runs, and not just easy long runs, but I did a couple of progression runs, things along those lines, where I felt like the shoe really, really did shine. This is one of my favorite feeling foams. I would say I would put this up there if I'm calling this a daily trainer and we're looking at pure performance. I would probably put this at second behind the Mizuno Neo Zen right now. And I haven't tried a ton of just standard daily trainers. Maybe we call this a max cushion daily trainer, and in that case, maybe it's my #1 max cushion daily trainer just off of performance alone. So the shoe definitely lives up to the hype. The shoe does get the job done. The versatility is up there with like the Adidas Evo SL, but I do expect this to outlast the Evo SL from a durability standpoint. So if this is worth 2 Evo SLs, again, there's your $300. That's a question that you're just going to have to answer for yourself as far as where could this fit in your shoe rotation. But it is a very good shoe. It's a very fun shoe, and I very much look forward to seeing what Speedland continues to do on the roads. And I'm curious if they're going to do more of a even lighter, more stripped down kind of marathon racing specific shoe, or if this is meant to kind of fill that gap for people. you know, they're signing some road athletes now, so it'll be really, really interesting to see what they do going forward. Now, if you're still watching at this point, I sure appreciate you. Please take a second, leave a comment, let me know what you enjoyed about this review. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so that you get notified every time I drop a new video. And with that, we'll wrap it up. And as always, leave you with a question, which is, would you rather have 2 to 3 shoes in a shoe rotation that each have their separate purpose, or one shoe for the cost of maybe 2 that can do a little bit of everything? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.